Hello, gardeners. I'm John Bowen, the Buncombe County Master Gardener, and I'm going to be talking to you today about winter sowing, a fun way to plant your seeds in December and alleviate those winter garden blues. I've been planting seeds since shortly after Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden. I used to grow them under lights indoors, and lately I've been propagating so many plants, overwintering so many plants, that I'm running out of room under the lights for my seedlings. So I was happy to discover a few years ago a way to do winter planting. It's made my spring planting easier and a lot more interesting. This is a video of a presentation I made for the Black Mountain Sowing Circle in cooperation with the Buncombe County Black Mountain Library. This video is in 3 parts. This is part 1, an introduction to winter sowing. In part 2, I'll show you how to prepare the containers and how to plant them and answer some audience questions. And in part 3, I'll talk about handling the young plants for transplanting out into your garden and answer more questions. So let's get started now with part 1. You're all gardeners and seed persons. How do you grow your plants from seeds? I'm sure it's usually one of 2 ways. Sometimes you plant them directly in the ground, things like peas, beans, okra, corn, beets, carrots, flowers like zinnia and sunflowers. Other times you grow transplants. Maybe it's tomatoes, peppers, maybe squash, cole crops like cabbage and broccoli, maybe flowers like marigolds, dianthus, impatiens, petunias. How many of you grow your own transplants? Well, through the miracle of Zoom, I can imagine you all holding your hands in the air saying, I do, I do. Maybe this works for you, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe you find you just don't have enough lights. Maybe you don't have enough windowsills or enough warmth. Maybe the cat digs them all up, or you just don't get good quality transplants. Maybe you can't find the varieties you want as transplants. Maybe you'd like to change some of your direct seeding to planting transplants. These are all reasons why I want to talk to you about winter sowing, a way to get good transplants with minimal facilities and minimal effort. What about those exotic plants that we have seed for, or we may want to get seed for, but we're just not sure how to proceed? Sometimes you do a little research and it just gets confusing. Consider daylilies. Last year, I collected 200 seeds in the fall. I did my research online, and these were the instructions. Listen carefully. One site said, plant outdoors immediately after collecting. Another said, hold the seeds in the refrigerator and plant in the spring. Another site said, be sure to stratify before planting. Do you think I knew exactly what to do? I don't think so. I also collected some seeds from Spigella, Indian pink. The instruction I found was plant in the spring. That's all. Well, do I hold them in the refrigerator? Do I stratify them? That was not much help at all. One more example. I have seeds from cherry laurel. Actually, they're skip laurel. The only information I found was seeds are difficult to germinate. Now that was really helpful. The point is, it's often difficult to germinate seeds and grow transplants. Sometimes we don't have the facilities and the equipment. Sometimes we don't know what to do. And sometimes we think we're doing the right thing and the plants just don't thrive. Whatever the reason, we need a simple system that works most of the time for many kinds of seeds. And that's why we need to talk about winter sowing. Winter sowing is just a system for planting seeds outdoors in containers in the winter, letting the seeds and Mother Nature work things out in their own time. Then we collect and use the transplants in the spring. I'd like to talk to you about how seeds get around to germinating and then go through the winter sowing process stepwise so you can see the equipment and the procedures I use. I'll stop a couple times for questions and we'll have a question time at the end too. So first, let's talk about biology. What happens to seeds out there in nature? The plant sets seed, say in late summer. Maybe the seed falls to the ground, maybe it gets eaten by a bird or a bear, but somehow some manages to survive. It germinates at the right time and it makes new plants. That's the way the cycle works. And there are biological controls on germination. Some seeds have hard coats that have to wear away or crack, a process called scarification. Some require a prolonged cold, wet period. The botanists call that wet, cold period stratification, and we gardeners just might call it winter outdoors. Some need a cold period followed by increasing warmth and increasing day length, and that happens in the early spring. What happens around your compost pile? Have you ever had volunteer plants come up and thrive? Tomatoes, beans, squash? Somehow they sit there all winter and they manage to germinate at the right time in the spring. That's the biology we're going to harness in winter sowing. Seeds do it all the time with good success, and we're just going to optimize it for our benefit. Let's set seed biology aside and get into the winter sowing process itself. Here it is in a nutshell. Plant some seeds in a container like this in early winter, wait for them to germinate in the spring, and plant them out into your garden. This container is half full of soil. It's been cut in half. It has duct tape wrapped around it. You can see the silver here just to hold the two halves together. It has drainage holes in the bottom. This is our growing vessel. Does that sound simple enough? Good, then I'm done here. Let's go home. Oh, wait, you say, what's that? You want more detail? Okay, let me go through the basic steps. But before we talk about the mechanics, though, let's answer two big questions. First big question, what can we winter sow? The short answer is almost anything. And the follow-up question is, and do you want to sow it? Anything you plant is going to need to transplant it out of its container in the spring, and you need to think about that. Anything tender like tomatoes or peppers is going to need some protection in the spring, as it will probably germinate before you're ready to put it in the ground. All the winter hardy plants like the cold crops, the onions, the parsley, they do fine in winter sowing. Hardy flowers are great. Most perennials are hardy, are fine. Coneflowers, those daylily seeds I mentioned, the Indian pinks I talked about, those are all excellent choices for winter sowing. But what about the tomatoes and the peppers that we're trying to move off of your windowsills into a simpler system? That depends on when they germinate. They will probably need frost protection. Put a blanket over the container, move it into the garage, something like that. I had tomato seedlings freeze back last year. A spring frost caught me by surprise. They looked horrible. I almost threw them away. They looked dead to me. But eventually they grew out and they were fine and they made tomatoes. The plants may be a little smaller and scruffier than those big indoor transplants, and that's okay. They're going to have big roots and they're already going to be hardened off. Most people say that they produce just as well or better, even if they've had a little bit of that cold spring damage. How about things you don't usually transplant, like squash? Same thing, it's going to need frost protection, and they can get big before they're ready to plant out. I planted squash last year, and I won't do them again. The plants got so big they were hard to handle. I'd much rather direct seed the squash where it belongs at the right time in the spring. What about those crops that you've been taught to never try to transplant? Crops like peas or beans or carrots or beets with taproots. Oddly, they can be transplanted with care, maybe because the plants are tough and hardened, but they seem to work way better than you would expect, and I would not be afraid to give those taproot plants a shot. The big question number two, when do I plant? Not now, it's too warm. Seeds need consistent cold temperatures to make it through the winter. Wait until mid-December. The Druids among you may want to plant on the solstice, December 21st. Your seeds are going to get stratification and several freeze-thaw cycles to help break the dormancy, and they'll pop up in the early spring, February through April, depending on the weather. That's the end of part one. In part two, we'll talk about making and planting the containers and answer some audience questions.